This was the last field trip, I believe, that Loran Anderson was on. It was our field trip, Sarracenia. He was with us in Ocklawaha River State Park in mid-September this past year. We go back. I want to emphasize with these slides some of the considerable number of plants that Loran Anderson introduced to botany. This one is something special to Sarracenia's home territory. This has its global range entirely in the Panacea unit of the St. Mark's Refuge in Wakulla County. It may not be 10 square miles. Loran Anderson and a colleague established this as a species just after the turn of the century, named it for the Panacea unit of the refuge, and the common name is St. Mark's yellow-eyed grass, St. Mark's referring to the refuge. That's one of the particular plants that Loran introduced. There are two more to the left there, Golson's blazing star, which does not occur in this county, but it does in adjoining counties to the west. And at the bottom left, the Cow Creek spider lily, franklinensis, because it was described from a spot in Franklin County. And that's a fairly common, but it's endemic to Florida, I believe. Loran in a patch of narrow-leaf sunflowers on a Sarracenia Chapter trip in 2017. Here are two other plants that are credited to Dr. Anderson. And finally, the bigger thing as far as taxonomy, there's a genus named for Dr. Anderson. See how neatly they have joined his two names, Lorandersonia, but that's some of the rabbit brushes out west. This particular one was in a herbarium in New Mexico. So we've lost a friend there, but what he contributed to botany, of course, won't be lost. I'm going to ask our chapter member, Gail Fishman, who's sitting right beside where Loran used to sit, if she would come up, please, and make some reflections on Dr. Loran Anderson.
Well, I first met Dr. Anderson back in the 1990s when I was working for the Nature Conservancy. And I was asked to take a field trip over to a preserve that we owned over in near Chipley called Rock Hill Preserve, which is very beautiful, has a lot of wiregrass and a lot of longleaf pines and a lot of plants. And Dr. Anderson was bringing a field trip there. So I was asked to go over and open the gates and count for everybody and get them through the field trip and get them out. So I did that. I didn't know him then, and I only knew about 3 plants. And that was, I knew what a longleaf pine was, and I knew what wiregrass was, and I knew what smilax was. And beyond that, I didn't know much about plants, but I walked around with him and he's saying, well, this is this, and this is this, and see how this is. And I'm like, how does he know all this stuff? But he had been studying plants for most of his life. He learned when he was 11 years old how to pronounce the Latin names and learned all about them. His professor is the one who suggested that he study the rabbit bushes, so he did. And he also knew a lot about cannabis. He did a program for the Friends of St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge just before COVID struck and we shut everything down. And it was on hemp. And it was very interesting and everybody loved it. And he also did programs whenever I asked him to. Will you do a program here, do a program there? He did a program on plants that could kill for my garden circle. He did many plants, many programs for the Native Plant Society and anybody that would ask. He led many field trips.
But if you smell it, it's related to the bay leaf of the Mediterranean. This is Persea palustris. It could be used to flavor your soups, but this white is due to little hairs, so you might end up with a little scum on the top of your soup if you use this, whereas the bay leaf from the Mediterranean is smooth and doesn't have those hairs on it.
he contributed, I believe, something like 35,000 plants to the herbarium, to the Godfrey Herbarium at FSU. And he was famous for his puns. I can see him now. I always saw him sitting in the front row at the Magnolia chapter like this, you know, trying to hear everything. And he would come to a plant and you would talk about it, introduce it, and then he would say, and he had this nice booming voice that I could hear and understand, which was the most wonderful thing I thought about him. But he would say something about that plant and some obscure fact that nobody knew before. We all go, oh.
Well, the whole name relates to that. This is the genus Saururus. You know, dinosaur means terrible lizard, so saur refers to lizard. The species name is Cernuus. Cernua means nodding. So Saururus Cernua refers to the nodding lizard's tail. And as it flowers, it straightens up. So if it's bent like this, the flower that's opened right at the apparent top, at the absolute top stem of hair, but last flower to open, the flower cluster will be straight.
But and then he would come out with puns. He was famous for the puns, and honest to goodness, I can't remember any of his puns, but we all sat there waiting for the pun to come, and we were never disappointed. His grandchildren asked him, Grandpa, what's your favorite wildflower? And he'd say, whatever the one is in front of me.
Is where a leaf attaches, but the leaf sheath.
But perhaps the most famous saying he's known for, every plant can be eaten at least once. And we're going to miss him a lot.
Thank you so much, Gail Fishman. I neglected to say Gail is, or maybe I did say, anyway, Gail is a past president of the Magnolia chapter where Loran was a member. One, you'd hear from him all the time, and I'll have to tell those who may not know that there's a genus of native plants known as Erigeron. It's the fleabanes. So Erigeron, so at any opportunity on a field trip, Loran would come out with this. He said sometime in the past, the guy says, hey, Anderson, is that Erigeron? Nah, just a small hill. So, but I'm going to try to use in a practical sentence my favorite Loranism. I heard this several times on field trips. So, Sarracenia has been meeting in the same room since before the Dead Sea was even sick. So, he would hit you with that. Yeah, Dr. Anderson would come to meetings sometimes with his, after he was quite old. By the way, he made it to 86 years old, but in his last few years, he had this T-shirt that said, I would remember your name if you were a plant. And that certainly was true too. So Loran Anderson, rest his soul.